My name is Luis Genaro Garcia, and you're watching The Block Chronicles. Welcome to Self Help Graphics. This is a arts organization that's been open since 1972. It's provided arts resources for teachers, for students, and for parents that want to use this space as a resource. I'm a 14-year arts educator, and I've been working in the community where I graduated from, doing art education and critical pedagogical work with students, with families in communities of color, particularly focused on developing the social consciousness of students through art. I like capturing that engagement, right? That community engagement that, academia sometimes doesn't necessarily highlight, right? We talk about community engagement, right? Academics talk about social practice, right? And social practice has been going on, and this is an example of social practice that's not called social practice, it's community work, right? No one's an academic. We go out, we know and we understand the struggle, and so we're here kind of sustaining and contributing to that, right? And so we're not calling it social practice or anything like that. This is the work that we do, right? As artists, as educators, as nonprofits, organizations. I'm an educator, right? And so that's a privilege that sometimes separates students from educators, right? Especially educators that perhaps approach teaching through a banking concept of education, right? And with me, I feel that, the engagement or the relationships that we build through engagement are necessary in order for us to relate to our students. And so the other privilege that I like to say that I do have, and it's a good type of privilege, is the privilege of having grown up and graduated from the high school that I currently teach in, right? That gives me the privilege of understanding the social dynamics of that community, and I draw on my teacher's privilege to develop curriculums, to develop units that are really going to connect with the real life experiences of students. This is a print that I did recently in 2018. It was to commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the student walkouts from 1968. And so in a nutshell, one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of reference, right, the historic images and the narratives of the time. Originally, the original article said student disorders erupt at 4 high schools, policemen hurt, right? And so that original narrative from the LA Times reflected as the students acting in the disorderly conduct and hurting a policeman, right? If you look up any videos or look any documentation of the 1968 walkouts, you're going to see that some students were brutally assaulted by police officers. The walkouts in 1968 originated from the poor schooling conditions that students of color were being given, right? For the most part, students of color, I mean Latinos and African Americans, were being tracked into vocational jobs, right? When they were asking, I want to apply for college, they were being told, no, I think, you'll do better as a mechanic, you'll do better as a stay-at-home mom. And so, it really developed, I'm gonna say, a boiling point, right, during 1968. And aside from that, just to reference 1968, we also have the Black Panther Salute by John Carlos and Tommie Smith, right, in Mexico of 1968, where the Black Fist in the Air protested the conditions for African Americans in marginalized communities. And so I wanted to capture all of that, and for that reason, I include John Carlos and Tommie Smith, some student photographers from some archives that I found. And these are other original images from the La Raza magazine that I kind of collaged into the background, right? And so that's making reference, right, to 1968. And so what I wanted to do here, right, is so the title of this piece is called Coatlicue's Legacy, right? And Coatlicue is the mother of the hero twins, the Aztec mother of the mother of the Aztecs, right? And so, you know, what I wanted to sort of reference is pay tribute to our historical deities, right? Our historical origins, and so I wanted to represent our people, right, by referencing our history, our deities in cap and gown suits, right? And so what you have is Coatlicue being the mother, right, as leading the procession, right? Because often our mothers are the ones whose struggles have been the foundation for our own aspirations, right? And so I reference Coatlicue, right, because that's her legacy, right? Her legacy of struggle was for us to, you know, the legacy of our mothers, right, has been for us to kind of graduate and attain an education. But what you see is a reference again to communities of color, right? And so you have Quetzalcoatl, who is the serpent god, right? The sun, the Olmec heads that we constantly find throughout Latin America. And I reference also an African mask, right? And the Black Panthers to include, right, that this is a shared struggle, right, between people of color, Latinos and African Americans. And I reference death, right, because in reality, right, that's part of our living cycle, right? And so I included a luchador there as a symbol of the lucha, or the struggle that's always pushing us to get ahead, right? And so behind that, right, is a support of mothers, support of the next generation. And so these are really, right, the struggles that we've been dealing with. And so that's the idea behind, you know, Coatlicue's legacy, and sort of how, you know, as an educator of color, I'm also thinking, and as an artist, a lot of my work focuses on, you know, the struggle for education. I want to say that what I've used, right, as my own inspiration as an artist has been our community's daily struggle. You know, I understood what it was like for my mom to, you know, struggle on her own. And so as an educator, right, sometimes I understood that these are some of the things that students bring into the classroom. And so, you know, just seeing everyone that's out there hustling, from, you know, the street vendors trying to make $1 to the people that are actually sitting on bus benches, right, just waiting for the bus, right? People don't think of that often as a struggle. I grew up, you know, in LA, which is known for traffic, right? And so one of the things that initially has an inspiration to my work also is car culture, right? I think car culture is a staple of Los Angeles. And so some of the recent work that I've been doing, I've generated a body of work called Cruising LA's Political Landscape. And one of the things that I do through this body of work is I'm highlighting particular periods or years in which someone's civil rights were violated. And so to give you an example, in 1975, there was a court case called Madrigal versus, I think, LA County Hospital. And so the case fought for 7 women who were unlawfully sterilized, right, by LA County Hospital. And so in this particular image, what I'm showing is, because this happened in 1975, what I'm showing is a 1975 Monte Carlo, right? And then in the background behind the Monte Carlo, it looks like what 2 surgeons are sort of fixing the car, right? When in reality, I'm trying to reference the unlawful sterilizations of women. And so what I do that on, I do it on a collage of historic newspaper archives, right? I use the LA Times headline, and I pretty much create my own headline, right? But what I wanted to do with this idea of cruising LA's political landscape is I wanted to show cars, right? Lowrider cars, or just car culture cars in general, cruising the political landscape of that particular year. So this is a commemorative print that I did in 2014, I believe. We often think about Dia de los Muertos, right, as a time where we paint our faces or we decorate the altars of those that are no longer with us, right? And so that's traditionally what we do with Dia de los Muertos. And so what I wanted to do here was really a combination of how we celebrate Dia de los Muertos, but also make people see how the spirits are preparing themselves to come back for a day. And so what you see here is one of the spirits that's, comically shaving and really getting ready to come back to rejoice the time that he had with his family. And so, you see his tie that's not completely done. His dress shirt is not buttoned up all the way up yet because he's shaving. And so what I wanted to include in the background as well was this idea of papel picado, right? Dia de los Muertos has its own elements, right, that reference fire through the candles to light up the pathway and the gravesite of the spirits, right? There's wind, right, that's referenced by the papel picado, that's said to let us know when the spirits are present. The earth, right, is referenced with the flowers, the cempasúchil or marigolds, that have a very distinctive smell that's said to attract the spirits, right? And so water, we usually leave a bowl of water for spirits to clean themselves, right, because they've been asleep for a full year. And so again, the idea of this spirit, right, kind of, I thought about it as us, what we do when we get up in the morning and get ready, right? And so like me, that I have, a lot of facial hair, I get up in the morning and I shave and, kind of get ready to go to work. And so that's sort of kind of how I wanted to reference, right, the print. And so the sky itself is also a papel picado, right? And the figures that you see in the papel picado, right, are things that I feel have made me feel like a human, right? And so seeing students graduate, right, being active, right, as a cyclist, growing old with my wife, proposing to my wife, having pets that are no longer with us, right? And understanding that, that we share the world with other organisms other than human beings, right? We share it with animals. And of course, like, I couldn't leave out that I was an artist. And so to me, these are the things that have made me feel alive, right, while I'm alive. And I'm assuming that when I pass away and I wake up from a 4-year sleep, seeing images of all these things or objects are gonna make me feel like I'm back in the living world and I'm rejoicing with my loved ones. I wanted to close down this segment by sending a message / shout out to all students, educators, and any critical advocates out there, and tell you that if you feel that you're not getting enough of your education, if you feel that you're experiencing education through a banking approach where you're being given questions to look up in a book without generating a particular conversation with educators, is that use that inspiration to really become that educator that's going to critically challenge students, that's going to find ways to get engaged and get involved with students in the community, and really transform communities through the power of education. And so I hope that you're inspired, right, to become that educator, to become that advocate.